Hello guys, welcome back. So this is our sixth video on project integration management, and in this video we are going to talk about changes. You see, anytime during the project, changes to any part of the project may be requested. But just because a change is requested, it does not mean that a change has to be implemented. So all the change requests are evaluated and accepted or rejected in perform integrated change control process. So in this video, we are going to discuss in detail about one of the very important topics of project management professional exam, perform integrated change control process. So the key focus here is to look at the impact of each change on all the project constraints. For instance, any change in scope needs to be assessed for its impact on quality, risk, time, cost, resources, and customer satisfaction. So these updating of documents and replanning efforts, it take place in perform integrated change control process, and the approved changes of after this process are then implemented in direct and manage project work, right? So basically, perform integrated change control. It is a process of reviewing all change requests. This is very important. It is a process of reviewing all change requests, approving changes, and managing them, right? It reviews all the change requests to project documents, baselines, deliverables, and it plans and approves or rejects the changes. Okay, so this process basically relates all the change requests to the present project documents, to the present baselines which have been set, to the present deliverables. So we are going to review the impact of all the change requests on all these attributes, right? And it reduces the project risks. Very important. It reduces the project risks which often arise with changes in the project, or I would say which often arise with uncontrollable changes in the process, right? So obviously when your change requests, are properly monitored, you are definitely going to reduce your project risks, and it is definitely going to help you to manage your risks properly. Okay, now let's have a look on the inputs, tools and techniques, and the outputs which are there in perform integrated change control process. So let's start with the inputs first. So the first input is project management plan, of course. So because in the project management plan, scope management plan is one of the important input, because it contains a procedure to manage the scope changes, scope baseline, or I would say all the baselines, scope baseline, cost, and schedule baselines, right? Uh, Scope baseline important because it provides you the product definition. It provides you a definition of what is going to be the final outcome of the project. And in the project management plan, of course, there is a change management plan, which is going to be an important input. Changes are also documented and updated within the project management plan as part of the change and configuration management processes. Okay, so the second input is, of course, is change requests, which are generally generated from the monitoring and controlling process, and many of the executing processes, after monitoring and controlling and your project execution. So during these two processes, these two processes produce change requests as their output, which is an input to our perform integrated change control process. Work performance reports The work performance reports, which are of an interest to perform integrated change control process, can be, um, resource availability, schedule and cost data, earned value management reports. So EVM, the earned value management, we are going to discuss during our cost management uh, videos, right? Uh, then you have enterprise environmental factors. I think project management information system, it can impact, it can influence your perform integrated change control process. OPS, organizational process asserts, which can influence perform integrated change control process, can be, any existing procedure for approving the changes, any existing change control procedures, or any existing procedure to issue the change authorizations, right? So these are the list of inputs which influence perform integrated change control process. Let's look, let us have a look at the tools and techniques which we use in this process. The first one is expert judgment. We have discussed expert judgment many times before. So, in this case also, any experts like consultants, stakeholders, or subject matter experts, they may be asked to provide their expertise, and they may even be asked to, sit on the change control board, right? Then change control tools. Uh, Change control tools, in order to facilitate the change management, you can use many manual or automated tools. Tools are basically used to manage the change requests and the resulting decisions that you take. Also additional considerations should be made to communicate for communications to assist the change control members in their duties, as well as distribute the decisions to appropriate stakeholders. So proper change control tools need to be used. They can be manual or they can be any automatic software. Any decisions any decisions which are taken by the change control board, they need to be properly communicated to the appropriate stakeholders. Also, you can use any manual or automated tool to manage your change requests. The third is meetings. So in this case, meetings are usually referred to as the change control meetings. Whenever needed for the project, a change control board is responsible for meeting and reviewing the change requests, and for approving, rejecting, or any other disposition of those changes. Now let's have a look on the outputs. The first outputs is, of course, approved change requests. Change requests are properly processed according to the change control system by the project manager or the change control board or by any assigned team member. Uh, Approved change requests will be implemented, as we've already discussed, through the direct and managed process work. The disposition of all the change requests, whether they are approved or not, will be updated in the change log as part of the updates to the project documents. The next is change log. We already discussed about it. A change log is basically is used to document changes that occur during the project. These changes and their impact to the project in terms of any attribute in terms of time, cost, and risk are communicated to the appropriate stakeholders. Even the rejected change requests are also captured in the change log. So change log is basically list of all the change requests and their impact in terms of time, cost, and risks. It is a list of all the change requests, whether they are approved or whether they are rejected due to some other reason, right? Next is project management plan updates. Of course, any subsidiary plan of the project management plan which is affected by the approved change requests need to be updated. all the baselines, if they are affected by the formal change control process, they need to be updated. And of course, you need to update the project documents. As we have discussed, change log is also one of the project documents. So all the related project documents need to be updated, right? So our change is bad. Well, it's difficult to answer, and it varies from situation to situation. Changes can have negative impacts if there are a lot of changes on a project. So in this case, it becomes very difficult for the project manager to coordinate the work because it is always changing, right? When there are a lot of changes, you find it very difficult to concentrate on your work because it is always changing, right? So team members also who are working hard to complete their work on time, they are distracted of that work to help implement or evaluate changes. So what can we do? Changes are inevitable, right? You cannot prevent changes on a project. So the project manager should try to focus, to prevent the root cause of change. Okay, and the root cause may be that the project planning was not done properly, right? This can be the reason. Yes, it can be the reason. The project planning was not done properly. This can be the root cause of the reason that there are a lot of changes on the project. So the need for changes may indicate that project manager did not fully identify stakeholders or did not gather the requirements properly. Okay, so the project manager should should always focus to prevent the root cause of change requests whenever possible. Okay, so what should a PM do to control changes? Let's have a look. Project managers should work to obtain comprehensive requirements as soon as possible. Okay. Next is invest considerable time in identifying projects risks. Establish time and cost reserves. We'll study about reserves in time and cost management videos. Have a process in place to control changes which is to be followed properly. Okay, there should be a proper process to control the changes, and that process should be followed properly. Project managers should have a process for creating a change request. Okay, there should be a written process. So what should be the criteria to create a change request? He should have clear roles and responsibilities for approving changes. So there should be a clear set of instructions and clear set of roles and responsibility charts for approving the changes. Who is going to review? Who is going to approve or reject a change request? It should be clearly, properly planned. In case of excessive changes, re-evaluate the business case. So if you have lot of changes on the project, it means there is something wrong in your project initiation. So you need to re-evaluate your business case, why the project was started. Okay, allow only approved changes to be added to the baselines. Okay, this is a very important point. Only approved changes should be allowed to make any changes in your baselines. Very important point. Consider terminating a project that has excessive changes and start a new project with more complete set of requirements. So it means if you are getting a lot of changes every day and every day you're getting a lot of changes on the project, it means there is seriously wrong in your a set of requirements that you've gathered from the stakeholders. So it's always better you terminate a project and start a new project, because with so many changes you will neither be able to complete the project on time, nor within the budget, nor within your defined scope. So in case of excessive changes, it is always advisable to terminate a project and replan it, reinitiate it, replan it, and start a new project with a new project management plan, right? So some tips, there is a term configuration management system. So basically configuration management system, it contains the most updated version of the project documents. Okay, so it is also very important important part of project management. Your all the project documents should be updated, and all the updated versions of the document should be accessible to all the project team members and stakeholders. From exam point of view, you have to assume that all the projects that are being discussed in your exam questions have change control board. Very clear? Okay, so now that you have got a fair idea about how to deal with changes, let's have a look on the processes in detail for on how to make changes on the project, right? The first point is project managers should always focus to prevent the root cause of changes. Okay, we have already discussed about it that project managers should not only focus on managing the changes but proactively eliminate the need for changes. He should identify change, whenever the project manager is performing his duties on monitoring and controlling the project. So while uh, 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 measuring the project against the performance measurement baselines, he should discover a change as soon as possible, because discovering a change early will decrease the impact of the change. Look at the impact of change within the knowledge area. You know, you have to evaluate the impact of the changes on the other attributes of the project. For example, if there is a scope change, you have to evaluate its impact on time, cost, quality, risk, etc. But at the same time, you also have to evaluate its impact on the other scope of the project. For example, if there is any change in a particular scope of the project, how it is going to affect the rest of the scope, it needs to be evaluated. Similarly, if there is a schedule change in the project, you need to evaluate how it is going to impact the schedule of the other work activities, right? Create a change request. You should always create a formal change request and adhere to change management plan. Okay, any change hearsay should not be accepted. Only a formal written change request should be evaluated. Perform integrated change control. Now the most important point, how will the change affect all the other project constraints? Assess the change. Okay, you need to see if the change falls within your project charter. Okay, the requested change may be an entirely new project, right? So there may be a change request from one of the stakeholders which is not at all related to your current product definition. So it can be an entirely new project, so you need to very carefully assess your change requests. Also, uh, there can be a change which you have already considered while identifying the risks. Okay, for which you have already for which you have already considered the reserve while you identify it as a risk. So such change requests should not be considered for integrated change control process. Okay, so you also need to make sure that changes are either approved or rejected. Anyway, all the changes need to be logged in the change log sheet, but all the change requests should either be accepted or rejected. Project manager may approve changes, but if there is any change that is impacting the baselines or the project management plan, it should go properly through change control board. And finally, in perform integrated change control, if the change is approved, you should update all the project plans and documents. Okay, next is uh, manage stakeholders' expectations by communicating the change to stakeholders affected by the change, and manage the project to the revised project management plan and project documents. Means you have to update your project management plan, you have to follow the updated project management plan and updated project documents while dealing with the change requests. So do we need to go through perform integrated change control to make changes to processes or plans that haven't been finalized? No, right? See, it is very important from exam point of view. So when you are preparing the project charter or working on project management plan, changes can be made without a formal change request. But once something has been finalized, any requested changes need to go through integrated change control for approval or rejection. Okay, so you need to be very careful in the exam to understand whether suggested change talks about something which is still in the process or it is talking about something which has been finalized. So this will help you to determine whether change control is required or not, right? So time for a question. The client demands a change in the product specifications that will add only 2 weeks to the critical path. Which of the following is the best thing for the project manager to do? Is it A, compress the schedule to cover 2 weeks, B, cut scope to recover 2 weeks, C, consult with sponsor about options, or D, advise the client of the impact of the change? See, the question is asking you about the best thing, right? The best thing for the project manager to do. So you need to remember very carefully what to do when there is a change. Okay? So the first step you do is you need to evaluate. You should not take any actions without proper approvals. Okay, so if there is a change request, you need to evaluate its impact, and you should not take any actions without proper approvals. But the first two options, compress the schedule and cut the scope, okay, can only be done after consulting with the sponsor and advising the client about the impact, right? So without consulting with your sponsor and without advising the client on about the compressing the schedule and cutting the scope, you cannot move ahead. So A and B are ruled out. Also, you need to consult to your internal management first. Only then you can reach out to the customer. Okay, so the best answer is consult with the sponsor about the options. Clear? Okay, thank you guys. That's all for this session. Please do leave your comments in the comment section below. In our next video, we are going to discuss the last part of project integration management, that is close project or phase.